Now let's look at our final block of technique before we start putting everything together. So far we've looked at chords in lots of different open keys to give you some good ideas how to practically use them. But now what I'm going to do is teach you a system called the CAGED chord system that should bring everything together. So the idea with this is if you learn the CAGED chord system, you should be able to play any chord anywhere on the neck. So it's great for creating your own kind of voicings. It totally interlinks with everything we've already been doing, so you should be able to see where all these shapes come from. And at the same time, if somebody's playing in one position, it should be able to help you to play in any other position. So say your acoustic guitarist is playing down here on sort of just standard shapes. You should be able to pick a block of frets on the fretboard and play any chord, any song in any key, so any chord, any song in any key, just staying within position using the CAGED chord system. So the way this actually works is by spelling out the word CAGED, so C-A-G-E and D. And what this actually means is, in conjunction with bar chords, we take the open shapes of C, of A, of G, of E, and of D, and we use those to plot our chords up the neck. And because it's all sequential in the way you spell out CAGED, it's actually easy to see what the next shape should be. So let me demonstrate this to you. So say for instance we're playing a C chord, we're playing something in the key of C. So somebody's playing down here and you want to find an alternative voicing that's a bit further up the neck. What you do, you think about the word CAGED, so C-A-G-E-D. The next letter, so we've done the C shape there, C chord and the C shape. The next letter in the word of CAGED is A, so we're looking for a C chord using an A shape. And the next one happens to be here. Then we can look for a C chord using a G shape. And it happens to be here, particularly if I put the whole lot over across, like that. Then our next one is our C chord using an E shape, which happens to be here. Then our C chord using a D shape, which happens to be there. So you can see how all these blocks of information actually link together so you can create the right chord with the right voicing in the right place. So let's take another chord. Let's do this a bit more slowly. So for instance, let's say we'll take a D chord. Now, normal D chord. So that's a D chord using a D shape, as we know. So the next letter in the spelling of the word CAGED after the D, it just loops back to the C. So what we're looking for is a D chord using a C shape. And the important thing here is looking at where your bass notes are in each chord shape. So for instance, on a normal D chord, our bass note is on string number 4. On our C shape, it's on string 5. So therefore, we're looking for, remember we're looking for a D chord, C shape. So we're looking for a D note on string number 5. So that's a C, C sharp, that's a D there. So we could play a D chord using a C shape like that, but of course we've got some open strings there, so it's no longer technically a straightforward D chord anymore. So we need to use our bar, so our finger is barring across the 2nd fret, and then we place our fingers like that. So the C shape is probably slightly more difficult than some of the other shapes, which is why it's less used. But nevertheless, it actually sounds really good. So we've got a D chord there using a C shape. So try and get that. So it's basically like moving a C chord up 2 frets and keeping your first finger free to add the bar on there. So the D chord, C shape. Next chord shape, so we're looking for a D chord up the next chord shape. So the spelling of the word CAGED, so we've had C and then it's A. So we're looking for a D chord using an A shape. So A chords. So where's the bass note? Which string is it on? It's on the 5th string. Therefore, we're looking for a D note on that 5th string. So again, so it's in the same place. So this time, we're looking for an A-shaped chord, but we want to slide it all the way up. So our bar is there. So far we've got a D chord using a D shape, a C shape, and an A shape. So our D chord on the next shape up is now the G shape. So we've done a C shape, an A shape, and now the G shape. So if you think about it, if you've got a G chord here, so that's a G note, so our bass note's on string number 6. So we want to slide it all the way up until we find a D, a bass note. So we've got a G, an A B, a C, a D. And then what you need to do, you need to bar your first finger across, so we're making a G chord, D shape. Now in reality that's pretty hard to do, especially if you're trying to do it on an acoustic. But the thing is, we don't really need the bass strings, because if we're playing in a band as an electric guitarist, we've got somebody else creating the bass notes for us. So very often I will use this shape that we've already been exploring. So that's a D chord using a G shape. So after that we're looking for a D chord using an E shape. Now that actually is our bar chord. You kind of know that. And very often we've looked at E shapes and A shapes. That's the sort of a start of our playing if we're into bar chords anyway. So that's our D chord there. And then finally we've got a D chord using a D shape, which we can simply play like that. Or if we want the bass note, we've got to jig our fingers around a little bit and use that. And it's difficult not to hit that one. So what I would suggest is actually to use that like that in a real world scenario, or forget the bass note altogether and just use the D shape. So this is where all our alternative shapes have actually come from. So the way to practice these is by taking a straightforward major chord that you already know and try and playing it in each position up the fretboard so you get to see where they actually sit. So let's take an E chord. So an E chord here, we start with an E chord on an E shape. So what we need next is the next letter in the spelling of the word caged. So C-A-G-E-D. So we're looking for an E chord on a D shape. So the way to do it is we know that D, string number 4 is our bass note. So we find an E bass note on string 4 and we play our D there. Or D shape there, like that. Again, if that's too difficult, just use that one like that. So that's E chord, D shape. Next shape. So now it's an E chord using a C shape. And we've explored this one already. So this is here. That's an E chord using a C shape. Next spelling the word caged after C is A. So we want an E chord using an A shape. So that's up here. So try playing these along with me if you're not already. And then we've got an E chord using a G shape. So remember G chord there, slide it all the way up. So we've got an E bass note here. We could play the whole thing, but I would normally play that. And you remember our chord shapes that stayed in position in the key of D, just use these all together. And then finally, we go back to an E chord, E shape, which we've already done. So it's the same as that one. So take a few chord shapes, try playing them up and down the neck. So a great way to practice these caged chords is actually put a click on or a metronome and then actually work up and down the fretboard by using and choosing different chords. So let's do that a little bit now, so do it with me. So first off, we're going to try an A chord and we're going to work all the way up the fretboard. So we're going to start on A, just in a sort of standard A-shaped position, and then every 8 clicks we're going to change to the new chord. So here we go. So let's get the click going. So after 4, 2, 3, 4. So A on an A shape, 3, 4, 2. So A on a G shape, 2, 3, 4. The next shape is an E shape. and then A on a D shape, and then A on a C shape, and then you could go back to A on an A shape if you wanted to. Now you could go all the way back down again, but let's take another chord. So now let's go for an F chord. So start with a straightforward F bar, 2, 3, 4. So that's F on an E shape, F on a D shape, here we go. F on a C shape, F on an A shape, F on a G shape, and back to F on an E shape. Now let's go F on a B flat, actually so a B flat chord, here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So an A shape, B flat on a G shape, B flat on an E shape, B flat on a D shape, B flat on a C shape, and then finally back to an A shape again. Let's try something else random. Let's try C sharp. So the lowest position we can probably get C sharp really is probably well, yeah, you couldn't even get it on a C. Yeah, you could get it on a C shape there. 2, 3, 4. So on an A shape, 3, 4. On a G shape, C sharp on an E shape, C sharp on a D shape, and a C sharp on a C shape. Here we go. Let's do one final one. Let's do A flat. So we've got to look for the lowest A flat, which is here. So 1, 2, 3 on a G shape. A flat on an E shape. A flat on a D shape. A flat on a C shape. A flat on an A shape, and then finally A flat on a G shape. So we've looked at caged chords using major shapes, but we've also got minor shapes as well. So basically we've got the shapes of C minor, A minor, G minor, E minor and D minor. So with these ones, whilst they technically work, you tend to find, well, you never really play a C minor as an open chord. You don't really play G minor as an open chord very easily either. So there's only 3 that really kind of work very well in the real world, but it's worth noting and finding the other ones just to be on the safe side. So let's work these through. Let's go back to our D chord. This time we want a D minor on all 5 shapes. So we're going to start off with a straightforward D minor chord. So that's a D minor chord using a D minor shape. So the next spelling of the word caged is C. So now we want a C minor shape. Now the way we do this, normally to play a C major would be like that. And what we're really looking at is our third note. Whatever we're doing, it's always 1 fret back or a semitone below. So thirds in a minor chord are a semitone below, and then that will give us the shape that we want. So it's kind of like these 3 notes. And it's kind of pretty awkward to play if you're trying to get that together. But what you can basically do, so those 3 really gives you your C minor shape for a D minor chord. So you need to know it, and it's useful if you're playing chords kind of all over the neck, but realistically you probably wouldn't use that one as much. Next up, we've got a D minor chord using the next shape, which is an A minor shape, so very well known. So that's our A minor shape. So for our D minor chord using our G minor shape, now we've got the G major there, and we need to take our 3rd one back. So we could, in theory, move the 3rd from there to there, and that still gives us a kind of a D minor shape, but it's quite low to get that 3rd, but that's okay. Another way of doing it is actually putting this note here, so that's an F. So that actually is a really nice way of doing it. You can play it with those fingers or those fingers there. So I'm actually barring across strings 1, 2 and 3. And it's probably easy to do it like that. So that gives us a D minor chord on a G minor shape. Then of course we've got a D minor chord using an E minor shape, which is probably our most familiar one. So generally most people are familiar with A minors and E minor shapes. So that's E minor and then back to our D minor shape again.